All right, the next unit that we're going to do is called Pen and Ink, and I think that it will work out great for remote learning because we're depending on two things. We're depending on using value and we're depending on using texture, and those are two things that we've already worked with quite a bit. So this is what the paper will look like on Google Classroom, and it will go over the directions for you there as well as this little video. And then this is what pen and ink looks like. Some of these are kind of simple, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a range of what you may want to be doing. You don't have to do an animal. You can do something else. You can do anything that has a lot of texture. So that refers to the way something feels, so the roughness of the tree or the softness of the animal. Or some type of pattern also kind of relates a little bit to texture as well of the fish and the owl. The only thing that I would say with the fish is I would expect some background to be in there as well. If you were in school, we would be using the Micron pens like this, but obviously we're not in school. So you are welcome to use any type of ballpoint pen. So I just had a few here that I ended up using. And one thing that I would warn you about, because this happened to me, is I started off with a black pen and I got halfway through my project and I had to look all over the house for another black pen. So just make sure if you do it in blue pen or in black pen that you have at least another blue or black pen to work with. And you can also just do it in plain old pencil if you would like. That would work out fine as well. This one is a little bit more complicated. But many of you are totally capable of doing something that is this detailed or maybe just a little bit less. But challenge yourself. This is a 2-week project. You're going to have plenty of time to do it. So take your time, do a great job, do something that you would like at the end. What you're going to need is you're going to need 3 pieces of paper, and I'm just using regular computer paper, so 3 pieces of paper. One of them is going to be the practice that we're going to do on the video. So learning how to, it's called hatching, cross-hatching, stipple, and then we're going to do some mark making. And then the other one is going to be for your rough draft. And then the last one is going to be for your final draft. They're all the same type of paper, but you know from doing other rough drafts that rough drafts are messy, so it's always nice to get a clean copy of it to start working on. Now, you're going to want to have a reference. So you are welcome to go outside and take pictures. It's a great time to take pictures for pen and ink because there's a ton of texture in all the items outside. It hasn't greened up yet, so we're kind of seeing the trees, the bark on the trees. We're seeing the different types of rock. We're seeing the different types of sand and dirt and the leaves that are on top of it. So if you wanted to do something from a photograph of your own, this is a great time to go take a photograph and use it for this project. So this is the one that I took. Originally, this is what I was going to do for my pen and ink. It is a good example of a photo to use. You can see the birch tree right here. It has lots of different values. You know what value is, the lightness or darkness. It has a texture to it that we actually can get by using different types of drawing techniques. It has some lighter spots on the birdhouse as well as some darker spots. It has some more texture and some more texture, and it had some medium values as well. When you're working from your own photograph, just like if you're working from somebody else's photograph, you can edit what you don't want. So perhaps I don't want this other birdhouse in this picture. Maybe I just want to concentrate on this birdhouse. And also this little doodad over here is kind of charming and interesting when it's the birdhouse is in your yard. But I do think if I tried to draw that, a lot of people would be distracted by it. They wouldn't know what that was, and they would spend time trying to figure out what this little doohickey was rather than enjoying the rest of the photograph. So you can take things off, you can add things on. I really love the little dragonfly over here, but it would be more difficult to put the dragonfly on. So that's up to you. I love the little branches that are coming out of the birdhouse. You can make them larger or smaller. You could leave them out. Absolutely up to you. You could put a little bird on the little bird perch right there. What do you call it? The little bird perch. You can have all the different textures that are right in here. So that's a really good picture to use. You can also find one on the internet, somebody else took the photo, and you're welcome to use that in the same way as altering it. You could find something on the internet that is like, whoa, this is just absolutely gorgeous. You could try to copy it just the way it is, which would be absolutely fine. Or you could decide that maybe you're going to make it more your own and you're going to do something different. So for example, you could put a regular eye, an owl's eye inside of here. That would work out fine. And instead of the skull and the bat, which is very, very cool, but maybe you don't want a skull and a bat. Maybe you want it to be more optimistic. So you could continue with the bird's feathers, or maybe you could add something else in here. Maybe you could repeat the eye that is kind of like a moon. Maybe you could do a moon. You could do whatever you want in this section. You don't have to totally copy it exactly. But it's great for inspiration. And because we're just at the beginning, if you need to copy, then that's absolutely fine. That will help you to get to know how to do the pen and ink. You can also use your imagination. So what I told you before was I went outside, I was taking some pictures, that's what I was going to use for the pen and ink. But then it's just seemed more fun and kind of relieves stress a little bit just to draw from your imagination. So this is what it ended up being after I drew from my imagination. And you can see the different values. You can see it's really, really dark. You can see it's really, really light. You can see I have some medium values, some dark to medium values. And you can see that I kind of had some fun with the tree and made it kind of scary and made it, you know, go in different directions as well. I tried to make it fairly well designed. I have an area of interest. I have movement around my piece of artwork. These kind of come over this way, go up this way, up to this branch, and come back down. I've created some nice depth with it almost looking like the front of a table, and then the fish bowls on it. And then way, way in the background are one set of mountains, two set of mountains, the moon, and then the sky going back. So to me, this was more fun to do. I didn't have to look at a photo. I could just do my rough draft, and then I could start to add my lights, my mediums, and my darks. Okay, the last option, and I think this might be a little bit boring for you guys because we've done this before, is you could do some type of doodle type of design. So you can see here I've used the hatching, I've used the cross hatching over here, I've used some cross hatching over here, I've used some mark making right here. I didn't really have much motivation to finish it just because I thought you guys done this so many times you probably want to pick something that is more something that is new to you, more challenging to you. But that is an option if you would like. So what you want to start with is you want to start with your hatching, your cross hatching, and your stipple. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your clean piece of paper, one of the three that I gave you, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do hatching. And we're going to do it kind of similar to the way that we did our value scales a while back. So I'm just going to use my pencil because I know everybody has a pencil. And hatching is just when you use a set of parallel lines. So these lines are parallel, they're going the same way. These lines are parallel to one another, they're going the same way. These lines are parallel to one another, they're going the same way. So because it is easier for me to go this way, that is the way that I'm going to make my value scale in hatching. But if your hand goes better going in a different way and you think you have more control, then that's what you can do. So what we're going to do is the first ones, I'm going to keep them really close together. And then I'm going to go over, I'm going to spread them out just a little bit more. And then I'm going to spread them out a little bit more. And you can see, just like when we did a value scale, when we shaded in, that the more that I spread out the lines, the lighter the area looks. So in this one I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values. So it'll be fine if you could get 5 values. So I have 1 extra value, and that's great too. If you can get 7 values, that's absolutely fabulous. And that is called hatching. The second technique is going to be called cross hatching. It starts off exactly the same way. We're going to do 1 set of parallel lines, and anytime you start to add another set of parallel lines, that makes it cross hatching. So that will be my first one. I'll go actually in reverse. I'll get lighter. I'll get darker this time. The more that I put on, the darker it is going to become. Try to get them a little bit closer. So you can put them closer together and or you can add more lines. Let's see if I can get one more a little bit darker. So I'm gonna get them super, super, super close together. So these are kind of in a way like our shades when we did shades, and we don't have as many shades as we did tints because we're going for darkness. Okay, so you're gonna give me, let's say, 4 values of cross-hatching. Okay, and then the last one is called stipple. And stipple is when you make little teeny tiny dots. Now we don't want to have to fill in a gigantic area where it's going to take us forever to do the stipple. So what you can do is just give yourself 3 circles, 3 diamonds, 3 shapes. And in the first one, you're going to give yourself a light spackling of dots. And your second one, you're going to give yourself more dots. And it should get a little bit darker, and it has. And then on the last one, you're going to try to give yourself a lot more dots. And when we do mark making in a little bit, you can kind of combine stipple and line together, and that'll give you some mark making rough textures. So if we had the pens and we were doing it, the dots would be very, very much like dots, whereas with the pencil, they kind of look a little bit more like that. But we're going to use what we can use. All right, so we can use hatching, we can use cross hatching, we can use stipple. The last thing is called mark making. Okay, and in mark making, you're just trying to make it look like a certain texture. So for example, the one that I showed you before, I just did something that looked like the bark of a tree. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to kind of wiggle. We're going to use the line that I talked about before. And once I have the line in, I'm going to go back and I'm going to darken it up in some spots. And then I'm going to give myself some super thin lines. I'm trying to get the other edge of my pencil so it writes thin. And I'm going to do some more lines. And then on some of those, wherever I feel like it kind of needs it, I'll go back in and I'll darken them up. And then I'll add some more. And what I'm trying to do is just trying to get it to look like the bark of a tree. So on the bark of the tree, some parts are going to be darker and some parts are going to be lighter. It might be because of the color of the bark, but it also might be the lighting. And you can see that that kind of looks like a knot in the bark of a tree. Another one that I did that is fairly easy are bricks. So I have the bricks, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and I'm going to put some uneven lines around it. And if I wanted it to look like there was white in between, which I didn't do on the top one, but I'll do it on this one. And go like this. And then once I have that, I can go in, I can give myself some bigger circles. I'm trying to make them somewhat random. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to do in between the dots and the lines, I'm going to make other little marks in it. So almost like the tiny, tiny little holes that are in a brick. I'll just kind of go over this one a little bit more so at least the center one looks a little bit more finished than the rest. Okay, and then the last one I did, my intention was for it to look like grass. So I did some lines that look like this. And then after that I went in and pressed down to make some of them darker. And some of them in front and some of them behind. And then when I looked at it again, I thought, this could be grass, but it also could be fire. So to me, it kind of looks like either one of those. It almost looks a little bit like hair. or like fur as well. So you can see where I'm using different types of lines. I'm pressing down, I'm lightening some places up by not pressing down as much. I'm going back and I'm darkening it in, just like we did on our doodle, and for some of you, what we did on our shoe as well. So the techniques are hatching, cross-hatching, stipple, and mark making. You're going to do that first. You're going to get familiar with those techniques first. And then once you have done a paper with that, practice as much as you want, but at least as much as I told you to do right here. Then you're going to go on to your rough draft. Okay? So this was my first rough draft. This was my original idea for the piece of artwork. And in this one, I had a profile. And after I put the profile in, I thought, ooh, the profile is really becoming too much the area of interest. I really don't want a face to be the area of interest. I really want the fact that the coral, which is right here, is breaking out of the fishbowl and it's infiltrated, it's gone into the tree. So I wanted this part to be more the area of interest, not so much that part. So I was like, oh, I got to get rid of the face. So then this was my second one. This is my second attempt at it. And in this one, you can see where I'm trying to do kind of a sweet little idyllic type of fishbowl. I had a little treasure chest right here and some plants and some fish. And then I have my coral right here. And then my coral now is finally breaking out of the fishbowl, and my tree in this area right here is becoming more of the area of interest, and that's what I wanted to do. So it's getting a little bit better right there. And then this is my rough draft, and you can see that I developed it more. I put a background in. I developed the inside of the fish tank a little bit more. I decided I wanted the water to go off of the table type of thing. And I made sure that this was a lot darker. Now I went over this in pen, and that will be up to you. When I took my computer paper and put it onto my rough draft that just had the pencil, I could see through it, but I couldn't see through it a great deal. So I thought if you're doing this in the evening, which I know is when a lot of you do your artwork, the lighting might not be that great. You might have a tough time. So that's why I went over it with the pen, so that when I did put the piece of paper on top of it, I'd actually be able to see the image through. The other thing that you can do if you're working during the daytime is that you can take your rough draft and you can tape it up to the window, put your final draft on top of it, and it will act just like our light tables in the classroom, and that way you can trace it. And then once you have it traced, then you can start with your pen and ink techniques. So you can see that they're not super, super neat. You know, they're kind of expressive and they have a lot of energy. And I think that's what makes it to be a more dynamic piece. Again, you want to have parts that are light, some parts that are kind of light, some parts that are medium, some parts that are super dark, kind of dark, lighter. And you want different techniques as well, of course, like your stipple, your hatching, your cross hatching, and then your mark making as well. And as you go along doing that, you might decide to make things a little bit different. I thought it was kind of interesting. I didn't even notice it the first time, but this is my little piece of coral at the beginning. And you notice it isn't alive. And then on my final one, I ended up putting little teeth on it, which I thought looked kind of cool. And so that it's almost like the coral is alive, and it did break through by itself, and it's infiltrating everything else. And I also thought it was really kind of cool. This was unintentional, but you see this looks like a face right here and a little mouth, and it looks like the body coming up. So in this way, it was a little bit of like art therapy. You know, we're having the virus go around. We're all in our houses. You know, it was kind of fun to do. It was interesting and fun to do. Okay? Now, when you are done, what you're going to pass into me, you're going to pass this into me, and I am hoping Google Classroom is going to work the way it's supposed to work, and I will be able to attach a document where you're going to answer a couple of questions about your piece of artwork, and you're going to attach your photograph of whatever you have done to that document as well. Okay? Any questions, you know that you can email me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So 2-week assignment, plenty of time, Do something amazing, amaze yourself, amaze me. And I'm going to be really looking forward to seeing what you have in your head, what you would like to do, and how you do it. Okay?